Good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adrianna.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything, trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are uplifting positive stories. Happy New Year, everybody! Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. Thanks for joining us.
And thank you for kicking off your 2025 with us if you're listening on New Year's Day.
Year's Day, yeah.
Kiss 2024 goodbye, and we move forward to 2025.
We're on to 2025.
Hopefully with more hope going forward, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like people have mixed emotions when it comes to the new year.
Yes, exactly. Everybody's making their New Year's resolutions and reflecting back on the past year. So today's episode is all about reflecting, celebrating, and aspiring. So we're going to tackle a few different things in this episode. We're going to talk about the importance of reflecting on your past year or years even, and looking back at the growth you've had or the things you've learned, the things that you've accomplished, and then celebrating those things that you've done or things you've learned that maybe were very positive, and just being able to celebrate them. And then looking forward into the next year or even the next 5 years and just what you are aspiring towards and what are some small steps that you can start now going into 2025 that could amount into something even greater in 2030. Which is crazy to think, 2030.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that.
But
I'll be 35 in 2030. I don't like that.
Oh my goodness.
I'm already nervous about turning 30 this year. You got to add 5 years of that?
But yes, so we'll start off on the subreddit Ask Reddit, and this question on Ask Reddit that prompted this response is, what is the most wholesome thing you have seen? So this is just a very sweet story. Here we go. When my youngest brother was about 8 or 9, he's 12 now, he came home with the Student of the Month paper in his folder. He heard that the school custodian recently had come back from having back surgery, so after lunch, he gathered a few of his buddies and they swept the cafeteria to give the custodian a break. He was so humble about it too, he didn't care that he got noticed. I just remember being so proud and crying a bit because although I knew he is a good nugget, I just didn't expect him to go out of his way at such a young age and to get his buddies to follow. It makes my heart very happy. The reason why I included this story in this topic here is because I think it's really important to reflect and celebrate when you or somebody you know does something like that, of that nature, that is so positive for somebody else. And yes, he was humble and he wasn't expecting anything from it, but for the school to give him a Student of the Month thing because of that, I think that's so awesome to recognize that he did that thing. And maybe maybe he wasn't doing it for the recognition, but just to recognize that, hey, that was really cool that you did that. I think that's really important. And I think it's also important for ourselves, too, to look back and celebrate those wins that we have, too. And we do something really, really great and very positive, whether it be an accomplishment that you've been working really hard towards. Maybe you had a goal in 2024 of, I don't know, working out more or learning a language, and you downloaded the Duolingo app and you did a little bit and you've learned a little bit more. I think it's really important to reflect on those things from the past year and be like, yeah, that was growth that I had. You know, I did do that. Whatever that thing was.
Even if it wasn't to your goal, because usually our goals are unattainable or they're like ideal scenario, perfect,
Yes.
Nothing gets in the way, nothing goes wrong, even a little bit, you know?
Right.
But the fact that you did something is still more than nothing before.
100%. And maybe it's even something that you just you learned from the past year. Maybe it was you learned how to set better boundaries in your life, or you learned, I don't know, whatever it might be. You decided to take a leap of faith and you just started a new career or whatever, or a new hobby or whatever it may be. Just being able to actually take a moment, and yes, obviously everyone likes to make those New Year's resolutions, but before you do that, even maybe just take a moment and think back on the things you have done and celebrate those wins or those things that you've done that were positive in this past year or in the last 5 years or whatever it might be. So I thought that was a good way to start it off. And that leads into our next story then, which is a listener submitted story. I am super excited to share it. It's such a great story. So I'm just going to dive right into it.
If you send them in, we will read them if they're, positive and fit our criteria.
This story is super, super awesome. I'm super excited to share it. So here we go.
I've not seen this, so.
That's true. So this story says, My friend, let's call her Shelby, was living in an apartment where the conditions were terrible. The landlord overcharged but wouldn't fix anything. The pipes were taped, poorly I might add. The ceiling would pour water when it rained, and there were multiple occasions where she would wake up and not have water. She found another apartment that was in a safer location, cheaper rent, and had much better living conditions. Unfortunately, that only gave her 3 days to put the deposit down, and she didn't get paid until the following week. She posted on Facebook about how she needed help, and she added her GoFundMe. She needed $900 in 3 days. When I saw it, she had already raised $530, and a lot of comments said they wished they could help, but they were not able to swing any extra cash with it being so close to Christmas. I recently, within the past 6 months, started a new job. My old job was a very toxic environment. I was working overtime every single day. I was unhealthy, underpaid, and underappreciated. This new job makes me so happy. I'm paid a lot more, I feel much healthier, and overall, it's just better in general. I feel like I'm treasured as a human being, not just a pawn that helps bring in money for the company. I recently got a Christmas bonus. I actually received it the same day that Shelby posted that she needed help. Before I opened the bonus, my manager prefaced it by saying, "It's only a half bonus since you started in June." At my old company, we didn't get bonuses at all. We got greasy pizza if we were lucky. So I was
Sounds
only
about right.
Yeah, right. So I was only expecting like $50 maximum for this bonus. I opened the bonus and my heart stopped beating. They were giving me $3,600. Yeah, that's pretty
Whoa.
awesome. I honestly forgot how to breathe, and I just bug-eyed my manager, jaw open and everything. I can feel my nose burning and my eyes watering as I type this. It was seriously such a blessing to me. I can't put it into words. I mean, seriously, how could I ever deserve something like that? That is awesome. That is really cool that they gave him that big of a bonus. That's awesome. Anyways, I get home still absolutely floored, and I see Shelby's post. We were friends when we were younger, but we didn't really talk much as adults, though we remained aware of each other's lives through Facebook. I saw that she needed help, so I anonymously donated $300. I considered donating the whole amount, but I was nervous because I didn't want the GoFundMe to cut off donations. I'm not sure how GoFundMe works. I also didn't donate the whole amount because I just had surgery and the bill after insurance came to around $2,500.
Oh.
Even so, I still felt a little selfish. That's silly, isn't it? I'm normally an oversharer. I tell my mom and boyfriend everything to a fault. But I haven't told anyone this. I want to because it felt so good to do, but I felt wrong sharing it. Does that make sense? I don't know. Shelby knew who had donated it because I was messaging her that I wanted to donate, but I didn't want to make it cap off. She messaged me thanking me, and I told her about the bonus. I didn't tell her how much my bonus was for. I told her that I had been blessed earlier in the day with something that I was not expecting, and that whenever she has the opportunity to bless someone financially, to pass it on. I checked back the next day and the GoFundMe amount had been met. Shelby signed her new lease, and now she and her kitty get to live in a safe location for less money with running water all the time. Yeah.
Dang. First off, I need to find that job. I want that kind of bonus.
I know,
Only a
that's
half
awesome.
bonus too?
Yeah,
What?
right?
I mean, I know taxes can take a pretty big chunk off of that with bonuses, but
Still, that's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, and
you know?
it's such a huge thing when you go from a toxic work environment to an environment where they actually seem to value you and they give you appreciation for the things that you do in the job. So the fact that this OP is getting appreciated for their work is just so, so awesome. Yeah, I just was like, whoa.
Yeah. First off, congratulations on your new job, OP. Hopefully it continues to be that way.
Yeah, exactly. But I just thought that was such a cool story. And I was just wowed. You get blessed with this amazing bonus. And then to think right away, like, I'm gonna help this person out. I want to, and $300 is a lot of money. There's a lot of things you can buy for $300. And they were saying like, oh, I felt guilty for not doing more. And it's like, no, that amount of money is huge.
Well, at that point, it was already at over $500. So
exactly.
I think it was
so you put it really
close
to the mark to be able to do what she needed, what Shelby needed to be able to get into that new apartment. And so, yeah, I just was first of all, that's so incredibly awesome. And the fact that you did it that quickly, like the same day, like I'm going to do this. That's so cool just to take that initiative that quickly to do it. But I thought this was another example too. They talked about how they're an oversharer. They tell their boyfriend and mom everything to a fault, but they haven't told anybody about this. I want to because it felt like a good thing to do, but I feel wrong sharing it. Does that make sense? And I 100% get that. 100%. Because it's so strange how our society has made it where it's like, don't seem like you're bragging, or don't seem like, be humble and stuff. And I see a lot of times with YouTubers or things that are like sharing good deeds that they're doing, and there are a lot of people in the comments that are like, oh, are you just trying to brag or whatever? And it's like, no, it's important, I think, to celebrate these things. And when we do stuff that's great, and I 100% get it, because I also don't like to share much of those things when we do something like that, because I feel weird doing it too. It's like we don't want to come off like we're bragging. But I do think that if you're not doing it for validation, it's okay I think, to share when you do something awesome for somebody. So thank you so much to OP for sending this in, because it's really, really inspiring. And that's why I love platforms like Reddit, where people can share these stories of when they do things for strangers or for people that they know even. And it's just stories of people doing these things that we wouldn't otherwise hear about, because people are so like, everybody feels weird sharing them. Like, it's just such a weird thing in our society, because, we share when like you see art exhibits and people are showing off their work that they put a hard work into, and be like, this is my accomplishment. We see people that are performing music and stuff like that, and they're showing off their skill and their singing or whatever. It's so weird that as a society we're like, you can't share exciting things when you do something altruistic. It's so weird that society is like that. So
especially up here in Minnesota and the upper North Midwest, like kind of like the on previous podcasts that we always like to say thank you when someone says thank you to us first. Like, we're those crazy people that we'd open the door for hold it door for somebody, they'd say thank us, and we'd say thank you back. Like, we got a backwards mindset there. We can't like acknowledge, hey, we did something nice.
Right. It's such a strange thing that it just kind of occurred to me when like I've seen some of these stories with like that, and I'm like, that's so true. Why is that we all are made to feel this way? So I just thought I just wanted to say like how awesome it is that people are doing these things and that we get to hear about them, because again, these aren't stories that I see very often, and so it's so cool to hear these awesome stories where people do something like that. So yeah, if you've had something in the past year that you've done that was to help somebody else out, like, reflect on it, think about it, like, allow yourself to feel that, whatever that feeling is, that happiness, that excitement, that pride that you were able to help somebody out like that, because I think it's important to do. I think it's important to let yourself feel those happy feelings, because it's contagious. Once you start doing something like that, once you do something nice for somebody, that feeling that of like, I don't know how to describe it, though, that feeling when you help somebody out, it'll inspire you to keep wanting to do things like that, because it's definitely catchy once you've experienced it. And yeah, sharing it around too, I think, is super cool. Like, for example, when we were in college, I might have shared this story already in the podcast, but our professor was talking about how one way that she would give in the community was to go around and buy a bunch of gift cards, and she would hand them out to people that were on the streets that were asking for money, because they often say, I don't know if this is the case in a lot of areas, but one thing that's been going around Duluth is like, don't give cash to people that are asking for money, because there's a big drug crisis going on in our area. And so they were like, don't give cash because it could be going towards that. And so our professor's solution to that was like, okay, well, then I'm going to give gift cards because I still want to be able to help. And so she would go around and buy gift cards for people, and then she'd have them in her purse and she'd hand them out to people when they were asking for money. And I just thought that was such a great idea. Had she not shared that she was doing that in class, I wouldn't have thought to do that. I'm like, that's such a great solution. And because I still wanted to be able to give. And so, yeah, I think by sharing these stories and hearing these stories and seeking out stories like this story that OP sent in, it's such a great way to inspire us to be able to find ways like that to give as well, or things that we can do. So I don't know. I just thought that was really, really cool. All right, on to our next story. Thank you again to OP for sending that in. Our next story comes from Random Acts of Kindness, and it is titled, Sharing a Story Close to My Heart, Dinosaur Birthday Cake.
Nice.
Here we go.
What dinosaur?
I don't know, actually. Here we go.
What the heck?
I came across as a very reserved, judgmental person sometimes, just because I'm very sensitive and shy. But I'm actually a huge softie. I wanted to be able to anonymously share one of my own random acts of kindness just to put a good word out there for other women with resting grouch face. I worked briefly as a cake decorator. It was a poorly managed grocery store bakery, so people put in a lot of last-minute cake requests, and it was honestly chaos all the time. People usually called with an attitude and ridiculous expectations, so answering the phone was not fun. But one day I answered, and instead of yelling on the other end of the line, there was a very quiet voice. I didn't even know if a person was there for a moment. That is how hesitant this caller was to speak. Right before I was about to hang up, she asked me if she would be able to use food stamps to pay for a birthday cake for her 2-year-old son. It immediately broke my heart. Like, all of the rage that I'd been bottling from this crappy job that day just turned into a pit in my stomach. I told her, yes, food stamps would be okay to use for this cake. She said he wanted dinosaurs. I managed to put together a nice cake, even though it was last minute, with a toy dinosaur on top. I knew I'd be leaving before she came to pick it up, so I called and left her a voicemail that someone had decided to start a pay-it-forward chain in the bakery that day, so her cake had been paid for. Then I paid for the cake and left. I didn't want her to have to use her food stamps for a birthday cake, but I also didn't want her to think that I pitied her. The cake was gone the next day, so I know she got it. I hope he liked it.
That's really nice.
Isn't that awesome?
Cakes can get pretty spendy too.
They can. And so,
Especially when there's specialty cakes like that, made to order cakes.
Yeah, 100%. And the fact that they went the extra mile, because the food stamps would have covered the cake. Mm-hmm. But she was like, nope, I'm going to make it so that they don't have to use up their food stamps on the cake, and they can just have this cake for their 2-year-old.
And not only did they give up their time to do it, granted, there's their job, but
Yeah.
they also paid for it with their own money. So they put in sweat money and also literal money into the deal.
Yeah, so I thought that was really, really cool. And again, a story of somebody being able to put out this story that they've obviously, it made them smile, made them happy to be able to do this for this person. And it was so cool that they got to anonymously put this on Reddit and be like, hey, this is, and I love the line, just want to put a good word out there for other women with resting grouch face, like being like, see, I'm a softie on the inside, and this is my story that I haven't shared with anybody, but I'm putting it out there. I thought that was such a funny way to start this little story, but I just thought it was awesome. So, like, again, one more time for this episode, celebrate the wins, celebrate those feelings of I did a good thing, because that's really important to do that. All right, last episode was all about allow yourself to feel the sad emotions and comfort people that aren't. This episode's all about feel those good emotions, feel those positive feelings, allow yourself to feel a little proud of yourself, feel happy, excited about those things that you did that were good, those accomplishments that you had, and then encourage other people to do the same. All right, our next story here. This one comes from the subreddit, What's the Most Wholesome Experience You've Had from Ask Reddit? And it says, about 5 years ago, I was trying this thing where I smiled to everybody on the street. It definitely involved working myself up for it until it became a habit, but that's another story. Cue me walking for groceries. I see a man coming toward me, and I'm working up the smile energy. And when I turn to look, though, I realize that he's crying and walking. We walk by each other and make eye contact, but immediately I just couldn't keep going. I turned around and I asked him if he was okay. He explained to me that he'd just seen someone he used to counsel for drug addiction on the street again, and that the person had just looked so aged that it broke his heart. He was still crying while we talked a bit more. I asked him his name, Graham, I'll never forget, and asked if I could give him a hug. We just stood there in the middle of the sidewalk, hugging each other while he cried. When we stepped away, he wiped his eyes, and he just looked at me and said, wow, this world, wow. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to care. I said thanks and patted his shoulder to have a good day. We parted ways, but of course, as soon as I turned my back to him to walk, I started bawling. I've never seen him again, but I do think about him a lot, and I wish him well in my head whenever I can. Graham, if you're somehow reading this, keep it up. We need people like you. Yeah. The reason why I shared this one too initially that got me was like the whole thing about how they made a goal to try to smile more to people. And they were saying, like, I had to kind of consciously do it to try to form it into a habit. And we've talked about this a little bit on the podcast before, but I thought that this was just such a simple example that, like, really, like, of a small action that we can do that becomes habit the more you do it. And that applies to so many things in our life in terms of, like, the next year or the next 5 years, is when you start making little steps or making conscious decisions of, like, I want to be this person in 5 years, or I want to have this habit in 5 years, or even in the next year for 2026. And making that conscious decision to start trying to get steps to do that. And so with this person, it was, I'm going to try to become more of a smiley person, and trying to consciously do that until it becomes a habit. And obviously by doing that, that led to this really wholesome interaction where it clearly affected this individual greatly when they needed it. Kind of tying into the last episode a little bit, that we were with comforting somebody in their time of need. I think that can apply to so many things. And I'm telling this story about this next 5 years thing. We actually heard about this from our pastor at church, and I was like, that's such a really interesting way to think about it, is if you look back from 5 years ago, and you think back of the changes that you've had in your life, or the things you've learned, and you start thinking about what caused that change. And usually it's very gradual. It's pretty rare that we make a New Year's resolution and the next year we're like, we hit it, we did it. All right, next New Year's resolution. Usually it's a slower process than that. But if you kind of think ahead, like 5 years from now, and you're like, 5 years is a decent amount of time. If you think about yourself 5 years ago, it probably feels kind of like forever ago. Both, like, no time has passed and all the time has passed, because you've probably learned and grown a lot in different ways from 5 years ago. And so if you think about 5 years from now, think about how drastic your life could change, or how many things could be different 5 years from now. And that can start now. So whether it be, I want to have a more positive mindset, or I want to, I don't know, learn a new language, or whatever it is, if you start doing little changes now, those things become habits, or can become greater change a year from now, 5 years from now. That idea kind of inspired me in the past year. So I hope that maybe that could inspire somebody else, just because I thought that was such a wise thing that our pastor said. And I was like, wow, that's so true. I didn't think about it like that. So I don't know, maybe it's not that deep, but to me, I was like, wow, that's really a cool way to think about it, is like 5 years from now, where do I want to be? And what are some small steps I can do to get to that point?
What helped me to prompt taking actionable steps to, like, live healthier and lose weight and stuff. Like, I mean, this was like a year and a half ago that series was. And I think since then I've lost about like 70 some pounds.
Yeah.
Like, gone back a little bit since last vacation, Disney World, and subsequent holidays. It happens. But hey, 6 steps forward, a couple steps back, still 4 steps forward,
Yeah, exactly.
Throwback to an earlier episode,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, even with this podcast, we're now, I think, 40 episodes in now, and it's already, think about where we were when we started versus where we are now. I like to think it's gotten better, and it's
Hopefully.
gotten better. I mean, there wasn't video when we started, so at least there's that. We
That's
have a
true.
video component now for the viewers on YouTube. And I think that our conversation gets more natural, our subject matter gets better, I feel like, and who knows where it will be in, and that's less than a year, so if we're looking at the 5 year scheme, who knows what kind of ripple effect it could have by then. Hopefully, when we started,
learning as we go.
When we started, we had no one writing in, and now we have some, so that's something.
Yeah, it's been really, really awesome. So thank you all for supporting us in this journey of doing this podcast. It's been really, really awesome since it started. It's been such a fun thing for us to do, and we've been really inspired by the stories we've been finding and the stories that have been submitted to us. Those have been amazing. So thank you for joining us on this journey. It's been really, really awesome in the past year. So thank you for that. So we're reflecting on that ourselves. It's been really, really cool. All right. Our news story for today comes from bbc.com, and it is titled Boys' Goodie Bags Praised by Ambulance Crews. This story is about Finley J., who is an 8-year-old who got the idea from a social media group called Hit the Ambulance Gamers. A hit is a random act of kindness. So this little boy visits Royal Shrewsbury Hospital and hands out bags containing tea, coffee, sweets, biscuits, chocolates, and pens. And yeah, just hands them out to the ambulance staff. To quote the article, Will Gold from West Midlands Ambulance Service said, "Our staff don't do the job for thanks, but having someone like Finley handing out goodie bags certainly makes the role even more worthwhile." The items in the bags are all donated by their friends and family of Finley, and they do little specialty bags for the holidays like Easter, Halloween, and Christmas. So yeah, he got the idea. He was inspired by a social media group and had the idea of he wanted to do this, and his mom was like, okay, let's do it. And so they started their own little social media thing to try to get donations for these bags and to show what he's been doing. And now he goes and he does that pretty regularly, it sounds like, handing these out. I thought that was such a cool story.
Add that to another list of examples of young children displaying their thanks and appreciation.
Yeah.
And it goes a much longer way sometimes than adults saying thank you.
It's awesome that he was inspired by something like that. And again, it's a perfect example of social media for good, because we often hear about trends on like TikTok and stuff that are very negative, and we're like, why is this a trend? But this thing actually was really positive. The whole hit the ambulance gamers, and that ends up being like a really positive thing that inspired this little 8-year-old. So there is a lot of inspiring things out there as well. And so going into the new year, maybe take some inspiration from some cool stories like that, or something that you've seen, and be like, that would be really cool to do that. Maybe give it a try. You know, you might be surprised at how good it feels to do something like that, like this little boy did. And then now he's made it into a whole thing, and he does a lot. You know, you never know. So looking forward into the next year, 2025, maybe that's your year to try something new like that. Super cool. I know we've been kind of reflecting on that too, about what 2025 will bring and things like that. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, before we wrap up the episode, are there any New Year's resolutions you want to talk about going into this year? Well, they'll understand that, like, you know, we were just talking about a 5-year plan, but that's fun. It's New Year's. Let's talk about something that's a little more New Year's resolution 2025 specific year. At least I feel like a more like doable resolution is like things to like start. It's not, you know, that kind of realm, you know, it's not like, I don't know, write a 1,000-page book or something in the course of a year, you know?
Exactly. I guess one thing that it's small, but I'm kind of working toward, is I want to become fluent in Spanish. So I'm hoping to practice Spanish more, and I'm hoping I think I'm going to download one of those apps that helps you to learn the language. I learned quite a bit when I was in high school, and I remember a decent amount, but I would like to become more fluent in it, where I could actually carry a conversation if I wanted to. I think that'd be really, really cool. So I think that's one little goal that I've got for the next year. I'm gonna start doing that. How about for you? What's your New Year's resolution?
See, well, you were thinking about, you know, is mine good or not? Mine are I just want to read more.
That's a good one, honestly.
That was my resolution for this year, and I failed miserably at it. I did not read more.
We were really busy this year, though.
That's true. I read like half of a short book on our trip with our friends back in April on the beach, and that was it.
Hey, but the beach is the perfect time to read, though.
That's true.
It's hard to find that perfect opportunity to sit down and read, though. And
it would be nice if we could finish our long-running D&D campaign that we're co-DMing with our friends. You know, after sitting for the past 3 years now, 3.5 years. So
yeah, it's been a long running. It's hard to get people together. Schedules are crazy. So yeah, I agree. That would be fun.
Yeah. Or at the least get it close to the end. At the end of the year. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah. So alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. We hope you had a great New Year's. And we hope that you'll join us for our next episode next Wednesday. It's going to be all about going above and beyond. So we got a lot of stories of workers and people in their everyday lives that just go above and beyond for whatever that may be. It's really, really going to be a really fun episode. I got some cool stories.
To infinity?
To infinity and beyond.
Don't sue us, Disney.
Don't sue us, Disney.
We want to go there again.
But yes, so we hope that you'll join us next week. Thank you so much again to our listener that submitted the story. We really, really, really enjoyed reading your story. It was very inspiring to us. And if you have positive stories out there, please feel free to share them with us. We would love to read them. You can share them to us at upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com, or you can share them on our subreddit, which is Uplift Positive Stories on Reddit. So lots of options there.
And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button, and please share with your friends or family if you think anyone would be interested in some positive stories here.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, here's to a wonderful 2025 for everybody.
Let's do it. We did it.
We did it. We made it to 2024, guys. It's going to be a great 2025. And have a wonderful rest of your week.
And stay positive.